Thank you. And to add my welcome to everyone here on this session, wherever you are in the world. And with this sense of kind of exploring together what it means to live a life well lived. What I'll be doing today is to be offering the first of 12 sessions. And maybe think of each session as a sort of milestone, if you like, or a chapter in a book of what we know from ancient wisdom and modern psychology might contribute to a life well lived. Who am I hoping these ideas will be helpful for? Over the last, 10, 20 years, here are some of the things I've consistently heard and which I think have created something of a puzzle. Mindfulness practice seems otherworldly, too difficult for me, too religious. And you can add a whole bunch of other things to that list. I tried mindfulness. It didn't work for me. Or, I loved the mindfulness course I did, but I've just gotten out of the habit, and now I feel kind of guilty, like I let myself down. Or, I did a mindfulness training, or I followed an app, and I feel a bit stale or stuck. I'm not sure what's next. And the puzzle for me is, how do you bridge that to what I often also hear, and which I feel is my own lived experience, which is, this is part of my life. It enriches my life. I can't really imagine my life without it. And I'd like to suggest that that is a bridge that we can make, a bridge we can readily make. And the next 12 sessions that I'm going to be offering are in the service of trying to make that bridge. And the first session today has got a theme, a foundational theme, if you like. Without this, none of the others are possible or easy, which is to wake up. So a life well lived begins with the end in mind. And I want to just read the opening of my new book, Mindfulness for Life. Hiking in the Lake District of England, I stopped for lunch in a cemetery. There was a headstone with a name and this simple inscription: a life well lived. It got me thinking, what does a life well lived look like? It's a question that we've all asked in one form of another. It's a question that's been asked for millennia by artists, from musicians to painters, dancers, sculptors, poets, and rappers, as well as philosophers and contemplatives. An average life around the world as of 2020 lasts 72 years, 4,000 weeks, or 26,000 days. As I write this, more than likely, I've lived the balance of my days. How many years, weeks, and days have you lived of your life? And what I'd like to encourage you to do as we go through the session is maybe just have a notepad and a pen to hand, or a phone if you want to make notes on your phone. I'd like to ask you just to jot down what comes to mind when I ask this question. What does a life well lived look like for you? Just take 30 seconds or so just to jot down an answer to that. And I'll ask you to develop this a bit more as we go along. When I've asked people this question, here are some of the most typical responses I get. Fun, laughter, good relationships with my loved ones, family, and friends, my faith or my religion, being true to myself, being true to the people I love, managing change, it's part of life, having some goals, a rich bank of memories, travel, adventure, having enough money, having a stable income, being safe, decent housing, coping. So when you hear that list, anything you want to add to yours? Just have a think about that for another 20 seconds or so. Has that provoked any more for you? Any more thoughts? And again, I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. What I'd like to suggest is in this sort of first step of waking up, this first step on a 12-step path to a life well lived, there are three keys that can unlock things. The first key is our values. And our values act like a compass, giving us a sense of direction, a sense of purpose. And everything you've just reflected on just now, everything I've read just now from that list of what people have said, points to our values. How we spend our time, where we place our energy, what we say and don't. These all profoundly affect how we live our lives. I was thinking about this and just contrasting two values of honesty and kindness. And I was thinking about friends of mine who value honesty over kindness. And sometimes I can experience them as quite abrupt. And it's pause for thought to think that's because for them, honesty is more important than kindness. And with other people, I always feel safe with them. I always feel that they'll say something nice. But if they wanted to give me some constructive feedback or say something more critical, they might not be the person I go to because they're prioritizing kindness over honesty. That's not to say this is a dichotomy. Of course it isn't. But this plays out everywhere, in friendships, at work. Here in my workplace, some people will prioritize the team over their own career. Other people will do the reverse. My father had a really strong work ethic and family ethic. And it took me a long time to learn that he developed it in very difficult circumstances when he found himself the man of the family as a young boy interned in a concentration camp with his mother and younger sisters and brother. I used to question him and say, why are you working so hard and not spending so much time with your family? And it's because he was providing selflessly for his family through hard work. I know he regarded the savings he left behind to provide for my mother as a key part of his life work. It helped me understand the choices he made to work hard throughout his life. Values show up in these unexpected ways, and they also show up at key points in our lives. Who we choose to start a relationship with, when we choose to end a relationship, choices maybe we have in our career, how we choose to spend our money, when health and illness hits. Again, just before I leave this first key of our values, our compass, maybe just take a few more seconds to look at the list that you've started to create and ask if there's anything you'd want to add to that list. And then what I'd like to ask you to do is maybe just put a word or a phrase into the chat so we get a sense of what's around for people in terms of their compass, in terms of their values. To keep learning. Authenticity. Connection. Integrity. Freedom. Humility. Faith. Compassion. Courage. So these are not abstract ideas alone. They're lived realities that show up in all the tiny moments of our day. And it's a deeply personal journey to discover what these values are. And it's also something that changes throughout the different phases of our life. The second key that I'd like to turn to is an idea that I think is one of the major bridges between people's hopes for mindfulness practice in their life and for many people, the reality. I think this idea of befriending our mind is absolutely key as one of the three keys to unlocking the potential of mindfulness practice to a life well lived. And again, I'd like to just read a little bit from the book. Mindfulness is about our mind being and becoming our best friend. I'll read that again. Mindfulness is about our mind being and becoming our best friend. There's an English footballer, Raheem Sterling, young player. He got interested in mindfulness and said, "My mind can be my worst enemy or best friend." He's known for inspiring others through his work ethic, for his family values, and for raising important awareness of social issues like knife crime. He meditates because it helps him befriend his mind, which in turn helps him with his sport, his mental health, and his wider work. So again, a question to you. What does friendship mean to you? What words or phrases best describe your friendships? What does a good friend do for you? Now and over the years, through the good and the bad patches of your life. Again, I've posed these questions to hundreds of people in workshops around the world. And here is what people have most often said. Loyalty. We belly laugh a lot. Belly laughter. Kind and caring, available. Mutual respect, honesty, forgiving. Doesn't judge me. Spending time together. Honest, calls me out. Makes me feel good. Celebrate things together. So here's my question to you. Does your idea of a good friend describe how you feel about your own mind? Maybe you already talk to yourself in affirming ways with messages like, "You've got this, steady, take a breath, I've got your back, it'll be okay." Or maybe the voice you use with yourself is critical. "I can't do that," or demanding, "I don't have time." If you already have a sense of your mind as a friend, all these practices that I'm going to introduce over the coming year are about befriending the mind to a deeper and a lifelong friendship. If you don't feel like your friend, your mind is your friend. My hope is that I can introduce practices that will help you to change that, whatever challenges it throws up, and amid whatever life circumstances we're in. So adding to the list, as we think about this idea of our mind and befriending our mind from the moment we're born to the moment we die, here are some more that have come up. Acceptance stays with me through difficult moments. Acceptance, dedication. sense of ease and trust. And again, that word courage. The third key is what most people associate mindfulness with, which is this idea of attention and awareness. This idea that we can take our attention and either, like the flashlight of awareness or a floodlit stadium of awareness, we can begin intentionally and with qualities of curiosity and kindness and care to, I'm going to say, take control of our attention and our awareness, become more intentional in what we pay attention, who we pay attention to, and how we pay attention. Now, I'm not going to say much more about that now, because that is the focus of the second chapter, which I'll turn to next month. But before I leave these three keys, I'd like to suggest that these three keys are like facets of a diamond. What I mean by that is, if we think of what we're doing, of constructing something which is like a really strong and beautiful diamond, these three elements of our values, befriending our mind, attention and awareness, support each other and bring out the beauty and bring out the strength. And they feed each other. They strengthen each other. And what we're doing is, with values, with befriending, with waking up, we're bringing our attention and awareness into a more volitional, intentional kind of modality, if you like. We're lighting up our life. We're moving towards, with awareness, a sense of a life well lived. I love Annie Dillard's quote because it's a way of kind of joining this idea of tiny moments to days, to months, to weeks, to years, to a lifetime. How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. And it's pointing to this idea that if what we do in the small moments of our day are aligned with our values, have this sense of walking alongside our friend, which for now I've introduced as our mind, but over the course of the next 11 chapters will be extended to our mind and body, with a sense of awareness imbued with these qualities, we start to create the life we envisage. So again, I'm just going to pause and ask a question. And again, I'd like to ask you to note down, to really see what comes up for you, and note down your response to this question. And it's easy to go just for surface level things. See if you can just drop below the surface level things in response to this question. When you think about living your life well, what are you already doing? What is working well for you? What capacities? I can't help myself to speak like a psychologist, but what capacities do you already have? What capabilities are you already expressing? And to speak less like a psychologist, what are you saying and doing in the moments of your life that is about walking a walk of a life well lived? And again, if you'd want to just put a few things in the chat as they come up, and we'll just maybe share some of those. So there's a sense of the work that we're doing here, of course, is deeply personal, but also has a real universality to it. Laughter, asking for help, being kind and supportive, gratitude, working on something I love with a sense of ease, connecting to strangers, gratitude, not giving up, having fun, being creative. So our minds are really primed to see where we are and where we'd like to be. And in a way, this question of a life well lived could, if misunderstood, kind of introduce that discrepancy. And that's not the intention at all. The idea of flourishing, which I think a life well lived is at the heart of a life well lived, is also to recognize what we already have. But when I say what we already have, that means we, but also the kind of relationality of the people around us, the community around us, and the wider world that we live in. These are resources that are already present, that are already here for us, that are a part of this work, if you like, of a life well lived. So I'd like to just move to 4 very brief, very everyday practices. And in a way, one of the things that I have tried to do in thinking about what we're teaching in mindfulness courses, whether that's introductory courses or more intensive courses or retreats that really deepen and extend people's learning, is to look for ways in which people can really integrate and build mindfulness practices into their lives. And the first one is a very, very simple practice. And I'd like to just encourage you to maybe follow along as I guide this practice. And I'll call it something really, really simple. I'll call it a practice of pausing and checking in. So just inviting you to take your awareness, take your attention, and turn it inwards. And ask yourself, what's the state of my mind right now? Is it alert or dull? Curious or bored? Vibrant or hazy? Just try choosing a word or two to describe your mind in this moment. Keeping it really simple. And now broaden your focus to your body and scan through your body and see if there are any particular sensations. Is there any discomfort or ease? Tightness or relaxation? Warmth or coolness? Again, just a word or two to describe the state of your body in this moment. And see with this sense of friendliness that I was talking about just now, you can welcome whatever you discover. Like you'd welcome a friend into your home, whether it's something pleasant, like a sense of curiosity, or something challenging, like a pain. Welcome them in the same way you'd welcome a friend in if they were laughing and in a great mood, or perhaps a little downcast and having a bad day. Remember, you don't need to change anything or fix anything. You're simply experiencing and befriending what's already here, pausing and checking in, experiencing your mind and body as they are, with an attitude of welcoming them like friends into your home. So here's the thing with these brief practices, these practices that we can kind of weave into our day. At the end of these brief practices, just as we bridge back into whatever we're doing, and in this particular example, just what we're doing is exploring this theme of waking up. See if you can set an intention to pause and check in as you go through your day. asking yourself, what's the state of my body and mind just now? And in these moments, nothing to fix or do, just this friendly curiosity and welcoming and befriending whatever you find. These very brief pausing and checking in practices, and later on we'll broaden this to what are called 3-step breathing spaces, are all just about building a sense of self-awareness and ability to be present. And there are lots of tiny moments in the day where this can be really instructive, really helpful, really anchoring. When you pick up your phone, as you wait for someone, when you're commuting, the moments just before you fall asleep, while you're with someone, just checking in. What's the state of my mind? What's the state of my body? And just being curious about what you learn. So I'd like to just offer 2 more practices, and then we'll talk about some things that we meet along the way, and then we'll have a chance for some questions. So this next practice is a practice for starting the day. So the start of the day offers several opportunities to pause and really wake up. Obviously, we wake up at the moment we move from sleep to wakefulness, but there's a slightly longer process for many of us of really waking up. So whether it's the moment you transition from sleep to wakefulness, or just before or after you get out of bed, or you're in the shower, or you're exercising, or you're eating breakfast, or during your commute, just finding some moments to pause and check in. So everyone's day is different, but for most of us, there are just these few moments where we can pause and check in. So maybe just imagining this is a practice that you do tomorrow morning. Start by choosing a moment where this might work, knowing the kind of way your day starts. And what I'll be inviting you to do is, in that moment, to go through a couple of steps. Tune in to how you're feeling. Again, pausing and checking in. How does your body feel? Are you rested or tired? How's your mind? What's the state of your mind? Is it alert or drowsy? Well rested or still sleepy? And then anchor. Turn your attention to your breath and body, and notice the sensations of breathing in your belly or chest, and riding the waves of a few breaths, anchoring and steadying yourself. Remember, you don't need to change anything about your breathing. You're just observing it and using it to anchor and steady. And now think about the day ahead. What are you looking forward to? What are you worried about? So there's this sense of scanning through the day ahead and maybe picking out some of the elements of a day that bear looking forward to. We're just preparing for a little bit. And then as you bring these moments to mind, are there any commitments you'd like to make to yourself about how you'd like the day to be? See if you can be specific and positive. For example, today I will. Or I'm going to move through my day with an attitude of curiosity or learning or courage. Framing this positively, I will rather than I won't. And as you do this, maybe even just visualizing the day in your mind's eye, how these moments that you're looking forward to might be, how you might enter into the moments, lean into the moments that are more challenging. So there's a sense of them being positive and fulfilling in some way. And a bit like gardening, what we're doing in these moments, minutes, this can be half an hour, it can be done in a couple of minutes, but when it becomes a habit, it's a bit like gardening. It's a bit like tilling the ground, planting a seed and tilling the ground, so that over time we're orienting ourselves to entering the day with a sense of being awake, leaning into, so that we can savor the good and we can approach and be with the difficult with a sense of courage and wisdom and whatever else those moments need. And this practice, and I'm going to just finish in a moment with a practice for ending the day. This practice is one that over a period of days and weeks and years, you can approach increasingly with a sense of it being a bit like a mixing board. That actually, as you think about moments that are going to be lovely, you might have a sense of dialing up certain attitudes that are part of befriending, connection, appreciative joy, being alongside. And as you lean into more challenging situations, there might be a sense of this is going to require a dialing up of letting go, of equanimity and balance, of courage. But again, this is all about practices for life and for a lifetime. And there is no right or wrong. It's all a process of learning and evolving and developing. And the final practice I want to then suggest is part of this notion of waking up, is ending the day. So this, in a way, is the converse of starting the day. What we're doing here at the end of the day is, as, again, choosing a moment between when we start getting ready to go to sleep and when we are actually asleep, to check in, pause and check in. What's the state of my body? What's the state of my mind? Connecting with the body, connecting with the mind, anchoring, perhaps using the breath with these crucial qualities of care, patience, interest, and kindness. And then scanning back through the day that's just been, dropping into the moments, sometimes tiny moments, that maybe were moments that can be savored, that can be appreciated. Allowing yourself to really re-experience and feel those moments, not with a sense of grasping or getting caught up in, but a lightness. And then there may have been some more tricky moments, and this requires tremendous skill, of course, because the mind, like Velcro, will love to have a sort of forensic examination of what went wrong with the day. And that's not the intention at all. It's a lightness. Ah, okay. So that happened. That's how I felt. That's how that unfolded. Again, bringing those qualities like a good friend to recalling those experiences and then letting them go, putting them down, to be returned to if they need to at another time. And ending the practice with a sense of coming back to the breath and the body. And of course, these practices of pausing and checking in, appreciation practices as well, starting the day and ending the day, they all inform each other. They all shape each other. So that over a period of time, waking up means using these practices in a way that can shape our day. And as Annie Dillard said, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. I was remembering teaching a group of school teachers, and one of the teachers said when she started doing these practices, she learned that going into the teacher's common room at the start of the school day was really not good for her well-being, because it was a school with quite low teacher morale. And so when she went into the class, into the teacher common room, she found her mood plummeting because people were unhappy and they were talking about all the things that were wrong in the school and with their day and with the kids. And whilst that was important and had its place, for her to be able to enter into the day and to do what she loved, which was to teach and to be with the children, she decided to prepare for her day at home and come in half an hour later, just before assembly and the classes started. So that idea of pausing, checking in, starting the day, ending the day, these things start to feed off each other and inform each other. So her life got reshaped. So I want to just finish with some obstacles, inevitably, that come up. If you're newer to mindfulness or your journey with learning some of these skills has been rocky, you might think, hokum, just not for me. Or, so what? I notice things, now what? I've had these thoughts myself. So there's a story of a monastery where there was a monk who coughed during the meditation, snored at night, and broke wind without compunction. The other monks went to the abbot and complained, "He's ruining our meditation. He makes it hard to sleep at night, and he stinks the place out. Can you please do something about him?" And the abbot smiled and responded, "I pay that monk to be here. His coughing, snoring, and flatulence are all intended to help you develop your patience, equanimity, and kindness." Now, that can be hard to hear, and it can be hard to put into practice. But many of the obstacles that we encounter when we start to wake up to our minds, to our bodies, to the people around us, to some of the challenges in the world, can be reframed in ways that can be tremendously helpful. So they become teachers. So let's take, I tried mindfulness before, but I couldn't keep it up. When we explore that, well, actually, let me rephrase that. The invitation is to really explore that statement. And when I explore it, what I see is it's using a sort of metaphor of a gym membership. I tried going to the gym. I joined a gym. I couldn't keep it up on the cold and dark nights. I just would rather stay home and watch TV. But if we reframe that and we really explore that and say, actually, this is not a gym membership. This is about a friendship, a lifelong friendship between me, my mind, and my body. A friendship that I choose to invest in and which enriches my life. It starts to shift things. It starts to change things. Or I've introduced quite a lot of ideas today, or when people start mindfulness, they might have this sort of reaction of, whoa, this is all way too much, too fast. But with anything new, a new job, a new relationship, it's wise to just take small steps and learn as we go along and trust ourselves as we go along, knowing what feels okay, what doesn't feel okay, and making adjustments, noticing red flags, stepping back from them, where the boundaries are, and guiding our way past trouble and through trouble. If our lives are full, this may be the time to go easy on ourselves, not add more pressure. Someone else described another obstacle to me in this way: mindfulness, meditation, or anything that involves sitting still and clearing my mind just makes me want to get up and do something more interesting or useful. Or as my 23-year-old daughter said to me today, it's just boring. This restlessness or boredom can be very pervasive and very compelling. Trying to stay present can make the restlessness and the boredom even stronger. Try acknowledging and naming it. Ah, that's restlessness, that's boredom. See if there are whispering voices that drive it. Get busy, keep moving. Got to be seen to be useful. Get curious about it. How strong is it? Does it come and go? Does it appear in all the different parts of your life? What's it like to live with that? Then, firmly and kindly, reorient your attention to somewhere in the body that's grounded and steady, or something outside that can hold your attention. Again, this idea of an obstacle potentially being a teacher. So I want to end with sort of an invitation for practice over the next month between now and when we move to chapter 2, paying attention. And this is a practice that for many people is one that they find really readily enriches their lives. And it doesn't actually involve doing anything new or adding anything to your life. It's more of a, what John Kabat-Zinn would call a sort of orthogonal shift. See if you can go about your day and start to develop a habit of really seeing, perhaps things that you have not been seeing, really touching things that you've perhaps not been touching, really listening to sounds that perhaps have been in the background. Be mindful of how you're interacting with the world, how you're interacting with your own mind, your own body, and take these moments to pause and notice. Right now, here in the UK, it's autumn and the days are starting cold and warming up into the afternoon. Feeling the warmth of the sun in the afternoon, or the chill in the morning, promising the end of summer. Being able to notice the cold on our face on a chilly day, alongside the comfort of a warm coat. Looking at the trees, but maybe also the space around the trees. Gazing at the stars, but also the sky that holds them. So it's this idea of paying attention and trying to bring a freshness to the senses and appreciating the small moments. Smile of a stranger, someone holding the door for you, the moment you hold the door for someone else. Fully tasting and savoring food. At the end of the day, reflecting back at the beginning of the day, setting an intention for the day. And when you are in the midst of something that is enjoyable or meaningful, allow yourself to really be awake to it. For me, the first morning cup of coffee, the taste, the smell, the heat, and within minutes, the feeling of a brightening of my attention. A walk, a favorite snack, time spent with someone you love, moments with your pet, reflecting while you travel, and just being really playful with all of your senses. And we know about the 5 senses, and some we know really well, seeing, but taste and touch and smell and balance and our place in space. These are also senses to begin to explore and be playful with. And this real sense, and I think this is actually quite profound in a sort of transformation of a life well lived, this real sense of reorienting our attention and all of the steps after that in our experience to open up to joy. Recognizing and savoring the simplicity of a moment. Finding enjoyment, meaning, and connection. And then exploring these moments with our senses and an attitude of friendly curiosity. So I want to just finish with a quote from the late Thich Nhat Hanh in one of the books that I think was probably really instrumental in bringing mindfulness into the mainstream. He wrote, "People usually consider walking on water or on thin air a miracle. But I think the real miracle is to walk on earth. Every day, we're engaged in a miracle that we don't even recognize. A blue sky, white clouds, green leaves, the black, curious eyes of a child, our own two eyes. All of it is a miracle." So I'd like to thank you very much for being awake and paying attention. And in the next stepping stone, as part of these 12 stepping stones, we'll be exploring attention.